Reach behind you, right to the very base of your spine. Feel that hard little knob at the bottom? That's not just a bone. That's a leftover, because you were supposed to have a tail. Every single one of your ancestors, going back far enough, had a long working tail, swishing, gripping, balancing. And then, around 25 million years ago, it vanished. Here's the strange part. For over a century, nobody could explain how. It was one of the biggest unsolved mysteries about your own body, until 2024, when scientists finally caught the culprit, a tiny piece of so-called junk DNA that jumped into the wrong place and erased your tail forever. And it may have come at a terrible price, one you are still paying today. Here's the first thing almost nobody knows about you. You did have a tail. You, personally. For a few weeks before you were born, you had a real tail. Not a bump, a genuine tail with little vertebrae sticking out from the base of your spine. Around week 5 in the womb, it was one of the most noticeable things about you. And then your own body turned on it. It systematically dissolved the tail, cell by cell, reabsorbing it back into you before you were ever born. You are, right now, the crime scene of a tail that was quietly erased, but it didn't disappear completely, because that hard knob you just felt, that's the coccyx, your tailbone, 3 to 5 vertebrae fused into a little stump, the buried remains of the tail you grew and destroyed before you took your first breath. And it's not even useless. That stump anchors the muscles that let you sit, stand, and go to the bathroom. So you didn't lose the tail entirely. You just deleted the fun part and kept the base. Which raises the obvious question. If we were building tails just fine, why stop? Now, if you've ever heard an answer to this, it was probably, we lost our tails so we could walk upright. It's clean. It makes sense. And it's backwards. Here's why. We lost the tail around 25 million years ago, but our ancestors didn't start walking on 2 legs until millions and millions of years later. We're talking a gap of roughly 20 million years. You cannot lose a tail to do something you won't start doing for another 20 million years. The timeline just doesn't work. So what actually happened? At that point, our ancestors were still up in the trees, but they were changing how they moved. Instead of running along branches on all fours like a monkey, they were shifting to bigger, more upright bodies, hanging, climbing, swinging. And a tail is fantastic if you're a 4-legged animal sprinting along a branch. It's your balance bar, your steering. But for a heavier ape hauling itself upright through the canopy, that tail started to matter less. It was becoming spare equipment. And here's the real twist on the myth. That shift toward upright bodies is what eventually, millions of years later, helped make walking on 2 legs possible. So we didn't lose the tail because we walked upright. If anything, it happened long before and quietly set the stage for it. That's the leading idea. But I'll be honest with you, the exact why is still argued about today, which makes the how we're about to get to even more satisfying, because that part, they finally cracked. For 100 years, how did we lose the tail was a genuine scientific mystery. Then, a graduate student named Bo Shia got curious. Partly, the story goes, after he hurt his own tailbone, and he went hunting through our DNA for the answer. And he found it, buried in a gene called TBXT, a gene whose job is literally helping build the tail. He spotted an intruder, a piece of DNA called an ALU element. And this thing is what scientists call a jumping gene, a rogue fragment that can copy itself and leap around the genome, landing wherever. For years, people dismissed these as useless genetic litter, junk DNA. Well, about 25 million years ago, one of them jumped straight into the tail gene of our ape ancestor. And here's the sneaky part. It didn't even land in the important tail-building section. It slipped into a quiet stretch nearby, but once it was there, it tangled with another piece of DNA next to it, and together, they quietly rewrote how the whole gene works. The result, the machine that builds tails got jammed. To prove it, the team did something wild. They took this exact ape-style change and engineered it into mice. And the mice were born with stumpy tails, kink tails, some with no tail at all. They had recreated in a lab the 25 million-year-old accident that took our tails. Now, to be fair, this one gene wasn't the whole story. The mice showed a mix of results, so other genes helped finish the job. But this jumping gene, this was the trigger, the first domino, the moment it all started. And that would be a perfect ending if it weren't for what they found next. Because when they made those tailless mice, something else showed up, something nobody was hoping to see. Birth defects. Specifically, the same genetic change that erased the tail also caused neural tube defects, problems where the spine and its covering don't close properly, the same family of conditions as spina bifida. Think about what that means. The mutation that freed us from our tails may not have been a clean win at all. It may have been a trade. We gave up the tail, and in exchange, we may have inherited a lasting vulnerability, a risk of serious spinal birth defects that still affects around 1 in 1,000 babies today, 25 million years later. That's the haunting part of this whole story. Evolution didn't hand us a free upgrade, it handed us a deal with fine print, and we're still paying it, so why don't you have a tail? Not because you didn't need one, not because you stood up to walk. The real answer is almost uncomfortably random. 25 million years ago, in an ape somewhere in a tree, a stray piece of parasitic DNA jumped into exactly the wrong spot and jammed the machine that builds tails. It was an accident, a genetic typo, but it happened to work well enough. And so it survived. It got passed down to every gibbon, every gorilla, every chimp, and to you. You don't have a tail because of a glitch, a lucky mistake that stuck. And that's the thing to sit with. You're not some perfectly designed final product. You are the descendant of an accident, still growing a tail in the womb out of pure ancient habit, still erasing it before birth, still carrying the little stump at the base of your spine, and maybe still quietly paying the price for a deal your ancestors made 25 million years before you were born. Evolution didn't remove your tail on purpose. It fumbled, and you inherited the fumble. So the next time you feel that little bump at the base of your spine, remember, that's not nothing. That's a 25 million year old ghost, the last trace of a tail that a rogue piece of DNA stole from your entire family tree and never gave back. If that rewired how you see your own body a little, subscribe. Next time, we're digging up another piece of you that's older and stranger than you ever realized. See you in the next one.